1 Chronicles 16:23. 16:23 says, "Sing to the Lord, all the earth, proclaim his salvation day after day." It's okay if I embarrass my kids just a little bit, isn't it? Those of you who have kids know, as Jeannie pointed out, you don't get to choose for them, but you can educate, you can guide, you can direct. But you kind of wish you could. You kind of wish you could choose their husband or wife. You kind of wish you could choose for them their career path. You kind of wish you could choose for them who they would hang out with, who they influence. One of the things that Sharon and I pray for daily is that our kids choose God. They choose to serve God. And I'm so happy today that Caleb is using his God, his influence for God in worshiping and teaching others about worship. So thank you, Caleb.
1 second here, I have to get my objects lessons ready. Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Good, okay. So, dirt bikes and worship. What does a dirt bike have to do with worship? I then bring a dirt bike into church. I have your attention now, don't I? Before we answer those questions, we have to answer a few different ones. Give me a definition of worship. What would you call worship?
On your knees praying to God.
Okay. Anybody else have a different?
Singing to God.
Reading the Bible.
Singing God, reading the Bible, praying,
Living a life that pleases God.
living a life that pleases Him.
Service.
Service. What did you say, Kylie?
Playing the piano.
Playing the piano.
Obedience.
Obedience, doing what He says, doing what He asks of us.
From the word worship, a life that proclaims God's worship to you.
And worship is like believers.
Would you say the definition of worship is restricted to these four walls?
No.
So worship isn't required to be in a church. You can worship outside of the church, correct? Would someone read Psalms 46:10 for me? Whoever gets it can just go ahead and read it.
Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth.
Being still and knowing. Just what I would define worship, my definition is recognizing that He is, and He created, and all around us, that's evidence for me. Being still and knowing. That's all it is. That's all what I think of worship. Just knowing that He did create this. Would someone read Daniel 2:20 for me? Whoever has it can just go ahead and read it.
Daniel said, let the name of God be blessed forever and ever. For wisdom and power belong to him.
Praise be to the name of God forever and ever. That doesn't mean just once a week, every Saturday. It says forever and ever. That includes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's not just every weekend we come to church. This is not the only place we need to be worshiping. It's forever and ever. We need to be doing this as a day-to-day thing. So, since it isn't exclusive to these four walls, where's somewhere you could worship daily? At home, in your devotions,
In your garden.
in your garden. What about in public? Could you do it in a Walmart?
Yeah. You won't do.
Could you do it in a dungeon? Would someone read for me Acts 16, 16 through 31?
And it came to pass, as we went to prayer, a certain damsel possessed with the spirit of divination met us, which brought her masters much gain by soothsaying. The same followed Paul and us, and cried, saying, These men are the servants of the Most High God, which show unto us the way of salvation. And this did she many days. But Paul, being grieved, turned and said to the Spirit, I command thee in the name of Jesus Christ to come out of her. And he came out the same hour. And when her masters saw that the hope of their gains was gone, they caught Paul and Silas, and drew them into the marketplace unto the rulers, and brought them to the magistrates, saying, These men, being Jews, do exceedingly trouble our city, and teach customs which are not lawful for us to receive, neither to observe, being Romans. And the multitude rose up together against them, and the magistrates rent off their clothes, and commanded to beat them. And when they had laid many stripes upon them, they cast them into prison, charging the jailer to keep them safely, who, having received such a charge, thrust them into the inner prison, and made their feet fast in the stocks. And at midnight Paul and Silas prayed, and sang praises unto God, and the prisoners heard them. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken. And immediately all the doors were opened, and everyone's bands were loosed. And the keeper of the prison, awakening out of his sleep, and seeing the prison doors open, he drew out his sword, and would have killed himself, supposing that the prisoners had been fled. But Paul cried with a loud voice, saying, Do thyself no harm, for we are all here. Then he called for a light, and sprang in, and came trembling, and fell down before Paul and Silas, and brought them out, and said, Sirs, what must I do to be saved? And they said, Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and thou shalt be saved, and thy house.
Amen.
They were praising God in the depths of a dungeon. They weren't in a church. They weren't restricted to these four walls. They weren't doing it in private or in silence. They were singing hymns to everybody in the prison. They weren't doing it knowing that God would bring down the roof on the place. They were doing it knowing just to praise him. Worship is different for everyone. So like Kylie said, it's playing music, it's playing the piano. Maybe it's just getting on a bicycle and going for a ride. It's you and God on the sidewalk. Maybe it's running, going for a run down a dirt road. Just some separate time to set away with you and God. Showing him towards others, wouldn't that be considered worship? Just going out and preaching his word to others. What would be your worship? What is one way that you guys worship daily?
Spend time in prayer.
Devotions.
Devotions, prayer,
Radio.
radio. Anybody else?
Fasting.
Fasting? So here comes the part where I involve the motorcycle. The fun part for me. So, what is my worship? What would I consider worship for me? For me, worship is going outside. Being outdoors is where I connect with God. It took me 3 years of being in school at Campion to realize this one simple statement. You don't have worship. Sometimes worship, the best place to worship God isn't always in the four walls of a church. Going outside and being in nature is how I best connect with God, in my opinion. This picture is with me and my friend Nathaniel. My bike's the black one, his is the green one. And me, him, and my dad went up to Colorado and we went to a downhill park where the ski lift takes you to the top and you get to ride your bike all the way down. It's a lot of fun and you get to see some pretty amazing stuff out there. And there's some pretty tough trails. Dad's shins have some evidence of it. This was also a few weeks ago. I don't know why the resolution isn't that great, but this was 3 weeks ago or so. We went out on a trail about an hour outside of Loveland where Campion is located. And then we started kind of going around this trail. We went up what was called Heart Attack Hill, and I kind of did a little crash there. But we connected with others, and this guy named Sergio, he just kind of came up to us. He's like, "Hey, can I come ride with you guys?" Like, "Sure, why not?" So we spent the entire day riding with a total stranger, and we just got to know him over the 8 hours or so that we were out there, and it was just a really fun time. And this was back over home leave from Campion. It was April or May, and we went out riding with a couple friends. The guy on the red motorcycle is my friend Hunter. He's in my class, and that's his dad to the right of him. And then there's me, and then there's my dad. So we went out and we went riding for a day, and we connected with others and nature. Here's another picture from Moab. You can just see the sheer scale of everything that was really there. It's just, you could see for miles and miles and miles. This was about a quarter mile from our campsite. This picture has a little bit of a cool story behind it. So every year, Campion does a ski trip. So this was our third ski trip, my third ski trip. It was Kylie's first. And I had never kind of like gone to the backside of this mountain resort yet. So everybody was talking to me about like, you gotta go on the snowcat. The snowcat's the coolest part. So we're like, okay, we're gonna go find the snowcat and we're gonna get a ride. So you go find it, and it's kind of this really secluded area, and then you see a really, really long line of people. You're like, oh, is it really worth it? So we like kind of hopped in line, and we waited there for 2.5 hours for a ride. And then we finally got to the top, and we're like, this was worth it. This was worth every minute we waited. At the very top, you're sitting at almost 13,000 feet, and you have nothing but you and nature. It's just, there's no boundaries. Sometimes it's being outside with your family. This was Thanksgiving Day. It was back in Moab, Utah. This was a trail called Gold Bar Rim, and you get to see these awesome formations. And there's only one thing that could have created that. Water. Lots and lots of water. There's another place in the Bible where you can get lots and lots of water, if you know what I'm talking about here. Here's another place I like to go. It's Pitkin, Colorado. This is on top of Fairview Mountain. It's just over, kind of close to 12,000 feet. It's like 11,800, somewhere around there. But it's a really, really fun trail, and it's just, you can see just how kind of like sharp it is, how rugged, how just awesomely beautiful it is. So there's more story to this picture. but we'll get to that in a bit. This is on top of Mount Antero, probably one of the highest trails you can get to the top of with a four-wheeler or a motorcycle. It sits at almost 14,000 feet. It's 13,800 feet. And it's just, you get up there and you can get lightheaded eating a Cheez-It. So, it's just so beautiful once you get to the top there. And then here is my favorite spot on the planet. This is called American Flag Mountain. It's my favorite trail. I really wanted to do it this year, we just couldn't make it happen. But I've done it pretty much every single year. But once you get to the top of that 80-mile ride, because it's about 40 miles there, 40 miles back. Once you get to the top there and you look over that edge, you're like, this couldn't have been an accident. You can't get to the top of that mountain and say, this is an accident. This happened by accident. No, there was a purpose. Everything in there was made with purpose. You cannot not believe in a creator God once you get to the top of that mountain. So here's a little bit of a funnier story here. So that's Grandpa Wehling in the picture there. He's a little kind of done for the day. But can anybody figure out what happened in this picture here?
Flat tire.
Flat tire? Well, this is
bicycle wreck.
Sort of, yeah. So this is on the way back from the summit of that mountain that you just saw. So this was about 10 miles outside of our campsite. We finished crossing all the mountains and everything, and we're kind of just rolling right into camp on a flat road until we get there. And then one of the friends we were riding with, his motorcycle ran out of gas. Like, well, it's kind of a little bit of a rough road to take a truck down and come pick up the motorcycle. Like, we have 2 spare back seats in the back of the Razor. We'll just put it back there. So we just threw it in the back of the Razor and strapped it down, and off we went. And this is on top of what I think is Mount Baldy. And you can see Trey in the corner of the picture there. Let's talk about maintenance. So, I've done a lot on this motorcycle, like a lot. Let's see, let's start with the minor stuff. I've done 2 pairs of handlebars, 2 pairs of hand grips, 2 chains, 3 different sprockets, 2 rear tires. I've had, it's on its 3rd cylinder head. It's on its 2nd coolant pump. Both radiators are caved in. It's on its 3rd stator. It's got a bad starting motor. There's been a lot that's gone wrong with this motorcycle. A lot. But why do I keep spending money, and why do I keep putting money into it and fixing it over and over again? Why don't I just sell it and be done? All it's doing is sucking my money. It's the main reason, the only reason why I keep pouring money into it is it's because it allows me to see this. If I wouldn't be able to keep putting money into it, I would never be able to see that again. And I don't think I could be able to do that. It is my key to connect with nature. Handlebars. You can tell what's wrong with this, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty serious. So this actually happened in my backyard. Pretty cheap handlebars, by the way. So if you saw in that picture before, my handlebars were red. So these were on there for a good long while. So I was in the backyard. I went up this hill, and it kind of went up in the air. I'm like, this is not going to end well. One wheel in the air, the rest of them on the ground. I'm like, this is kind of coming over backwards. So it starts to come over backwards. I'm like, it's time for me to move out of the way. So it does a flip, and then it lands right on the side of the handlebar and goes, pushes it sideways. And it's a little bit difficult to ride with a handlebar that's a little sideways. So you've got to maintain your handlebars. You've got to make sure they're straight. If if you want to ride your motorcycle properly. I told you I went through 2 separate chains. I'm going to pass this around and see if anybody can tell me what's wrong with this chain link here. It's just a little bent. Yeah, it's a little seriously bent. You can see it's not quite straight there. It's not supposed to be that way, no. So, and then I'm going to start passing around what a new chain link is supposed to look like. If I can get the bag over here. You've seen one. That's what a chain link is supposed to look like. And eventually everybody will get to see it. So you know what they call that link in the motorcycle world?
Master link.
They call it the master link. It is called the master link because without that, it's a paperweight. It's a glorified paperweight. You can't have a motorcycle without a form of driving. You can't. It doesn't serve a purpose unless it moves, right? Without that master link, if you're not paying attention to that master link, it all falls apart. So this summer, like a few days before we were trying to go to the sand dunes, I put on a new rim and a new tire. So and then I put on a new sprocket with it. So I had to shorten the chain. So I got the chain already, I got it all hooked up, and I took it down the yard and just started driving it. And then I heard a snap, and then I gave it throttle, and then there's nothing. And I looked down, and the chain's on the ground in the ball. I'm like, uh-oh. So if you look at that master link, it's severely bent. I didn't have it locked on correctly. I wasn't paying attention to the maintenance on that lock. So the lock popped out, and it bent it, and it fell out. I was missing one piece to that link. This piece was all I was missing. Something so small and so seemingly unimportant could turn my motorcycle into a paperweight. Probably a 30-cent piece of metal. That piece of metal could make this motorcycle purposeless. It makes it into a paperweight. So I had finally figured out what the problem was, and I hooked it all together and I made it work. And I'm like, okay, this is awesome. And then we got to the sand dunes, and as James and the Sandoval's were there, I went down this hill, and then I heard the snap, and then I gave it throttle, and nothing was there. And I looked on the ground, the chain was in a ball. I'm like, this is not good. I've been working on this sucker for way too long. So we threw the motorcycle in the back of the Polaris Ranger, and we drove it out of the sand dunes. But finally, I figured out I still wasn't doing the lock correctly. I still hadn't paid attention enough to put the lock together right. So we finally got it back together, and I think I've got a video here. I'll disconnect. How can I disconnect? So then, with the chain finally working, I was able to do something really cool. If you can see here, I skipped across the water. I had a paddle tire, and that paddle tire allowed me, with the chain working together, I was able to skip across a pond. And I thought that was pretty cool. So here, I'll reconnect. I was going to reset me to the beginning. One link determine if I was able to ride my motorcycle on. That one small piece of metal. This piece of metal. This is worship. Something seemingly small and unimportant. Why can't we just come to church once a week and just call that worship? If we don't keep up maintenance, the whole system falls apart. This is our worship, and the rear wheel is us. So, our worship connects us to the higher power. The power is the engine. God is our power. The link is the connection between us and Him. Worship is the connection between us, the wheel, and the engine, His higher power.
Amen.
Without this, everything else doesn't serve a purpose. The link matters so much that it can determine whether the system is useless or not. The whole system depends on this. Something small and seemingly unimportant. We need to maintain the link.
Amen.
So in conclusion, I want you to go home thinking, what is your worship? What is your link? And the real question is, are you behind in the maintenance of your link? And in our hymnal, it says, I think in our opening song, it was page 86, the second verse, about halfway down, and it says, when I look down from the lofty mountain grandeur, and hear the brook and feel the gentle breeze. Nature is my connection. Nature is my link. I just need to make sure you keep up the maintenance.